What's going on, everybody? It's Los here. We back on the throne of positivity where the first is last and the last is first. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. Thank you to everybody who has been supporting the ministry by sowing seed, whether monthly, one time, or even shopping at our Amazon list and buying us the necessities for the house. So I really appreciate you guys. If you would like to support, click one of the links in the description. And then also, guys, as a reminder, I mentioned this on live that our podcast is being revitalized on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you can see these episodes there if you want to choose. If you want the video, you got to be on YouTube, but the audio now is going to be on Spotify and Apple for your convenience. Enjoy this medium as you will. Okay, this video is gonna be fire. I could already tell because I'm not even joking. Like, for the last hour, I have been going through it trying to get this set up. So I have here, this is my audio recorder, my Zoom recorder, and it basically pooped out on me. Not only did it poop out on me, but look at what happened to my SD card. And I'm not about to go to Best Buy to go buy one. These things are so cheaply made, it just died on me. And then I had another one, I don't know where it even went, a blue one, and that one won't get recognized. So not only did that happen, I had to learn how to use GarageBand really quickly. That I was having issues with that because it was recording only on one side and I couldn't understand why it was only playing out the left. Figured that out, and then hopefully this is gonna work well. So you think it's convenient that we out here talk about spiritual warfare, that all of a sudden this is happening? So today I want to talk about spiritual warfare, and again, this is from the perspective of myself and my wife and how that's going to look like, so that we could be well aware of what to expect. And then this is being presented to you. I feel like it's very helpful for me to talk in like this first person perspective and then kind of throw it back to you to see it, so that almost as if I'm presenting it in a theatrical way, in the sense that I am engaging myself one-on-one with my woman of my dreams, the woman of my heart, and allowing you to kind of glean from that. Like, what does that look like from a third person perspective, so that you could study that and implement that however you will. From here, we'll see how the conversation continues to develop. I'm not sure what the next few videos will be about, but eventually we're going to touch on singleness. And I think it's fascinating, right? Like, you kind of notice that I did this in reverse, in the sense that I started from the marriage, men and women, husband and wife, and then I went straight to marriage, but I kind of skipped over singleness and what that looks like. To a large degree, I've skipped over it, and that was very intentional. And you would ask, well, how can that be? Why would you start at the end to come back to the beginning? I think that the reason why that's necessary is because we need to bring marriage back to its appropriate place. We no longer have reverence for marriage anymore. People are just making singleness the importance, and then there's no emphasis on marriage at all. But you don't do that. All the emphasis, all the reverence, all the importance is marriage, and then that flows backwards into singleness. It's not singleness and then you get married and then what? You start acting single again? Like, nah, that's what I'm trying to defeat here, is inspire men to listen. Let's break these barriers. Let's break these cliches. Let's break these misnomers about who we are as men. And that's how we're dealing in spiritual warfare. Is we need to destroy what the enemy has built up around us, trying to deceive with smoke and mirrors of what's not a reality. And then for women, the same thing. On the other side of that, I really want to present to women, my wife specifically, like, look, there's a man out there that's willing to fight for purity, that's willing to fight for innocence, that's willing to be himself, that's comfortable, authentic. Like, I'm just in tune with myself and my emotions, and I really don't, it don't bother me that other men look at me whatever way, because I'm going to help reshape that mentality. I think about this in the sense of, again, like my wife, obviously I'm trying to attract her. I'm doing my little peacock dance. You feel me, Bobby? You like Bobita? You like these feathers or what? You like them or what? But also, I'm thinking about it in the sense like anybody who's not my wife, right? Because that's exclusive to her. Um, oh my God. I know y'all saw the two birds dancing, and I feel like that's gonna describe our relationship perfectly. I'm sorry that I'm getting all caught up, but if you're listening on the podcast, you gotta see this on the video. I'm gonna put the video. The song is inappropriate, and I don't know how I'm gonna fit that in here without it being inappropriate, but it's mad hilarious. The bird is all dancing on the next bird, and I'm gonna be like, yo, my wife, mommy, that's what you gotta look forward to, mamita. So that's who I am. But anyways, for women, I'm trying to think about anybody who's not my wife, who's getting the exclusiveness of all of who I am. I'm looking at you like a sister. I'm looking at you like whether a mother or auntie, like one of those. In the sense, like that's how I'm trying to address you. Is like, how would I talk to you if you were my daughter or if you were my sister? Because, you know, if I don't put it in that perspective, it's like, okay, there's often this disconnect between the sexes. Like we don't speak, or I don't know, maybe I have the wrong idea of these things, and this is just my limited perception of society. Is like there's something happening, right? Like, and there's some type of advantage being taken here in the middle that separates us, at least in society. I'm not talking about in the church. I feel like men are not honest enough with women about their tactics until now they have their wife and now they have daughters. So now they got to reveal the tactics to the women because it's to their self-interest. It's like, nah, bro, you don't build a society like that. We can't use these underhanded, worldly tactics that come from the kingdom of darkness so that we could attract the woman that's on the other side to bring them in. And then once they're in, again, now we're going to reveal the tactics? Like, nah, we're going to expose that now because darkness is darkness, worldly is worldly. And I'm not saying that like if, you know, painting with a broad brush, but I think it's important to make that clear that that's what I'm attempting to do, because we got to start from scratch, man. Look at the society and how the West is failing. The United States of America, the greatest country in the world. I am proud to be American and I would not want to live anywhere else. This place that we call home, if you're in America, is crumbling. It's crumbling. And why is that? You think it's a coincidence that the government intervenes on marriage and then all of a sudden reconstitutes things, that now we're in shambles? Like, look at the state that we're in. We can't even tell who we are anymore. There's no coincidence in the destruction of the man being emasculated in the way that he is, and then taking the woman out of the home and throwing her to fend for herself, and it's leaving the children exposed. So do you see the scheme of the devil of what he's doing? He went straight for the jugular. He knows what he's doing. He's dealt with society for millennia. Like, he knows us better than we know ourselves. So we need to recognize, okay, this is what he has done. He has destroyed the man by isolating him and then reducing his masculinity to absolutely nothing. Then he takes the woman out of the home from her nurturing natural state and then brings her into the workforce to work hours and hours and hours, like away from the home. And now the child is whose child is that? It's the state's child. Like, who's taking care of that child? Who's teaching that child? And what are they learning? And then this is just the home. He calls the complete and utter economic collapse in the country, so that it is forced that two incomes are now needed so that he can have free access to the children to destroy them from a youth. He did this since the beginning of time, man. Like, just look at the Bible and how he tried to destroy Moses. So we have to look at those things and say, hey, I see what's going on, because there's no new things under the sun. You have to recognize that if you want wisdom, there's nothing new under the sun. And all that we can do is look at what's going on and say, hey, I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm not going to be a cliche. I'm going to fight against these things. And it goes back to what I've said to men. The greatest contribution that you can make to this world is what? your family, the way that you love that woman and the way that you raise those children. So I'm not advocating that women shouldn't be working or that men shouldn't be men, or whatever it is, like, but I'm asking that we be intentional, that we take back what is ours, that we fight for the vision of God as hard as we fight for the desires of our heart. We are always praying for the promises of God. We are always praying for our desires. We're praying for the good things and the abundance and the prosperity, but very rarely do you hear rhetoric of God's heart and his desire. It's always from our perspective, and it's absolutely selfish, and I cannot allow it. And who am I to say I cannot allow it? I'm just saying I cannot allow it in my own life. That's why I'm going to the effort and the strenuous exhaustion that I am to be the best man that I can be, so that I can be that man that I need to be, so that when he brings that woman into my fold, into my charge and under my responsibility, that I can hold her with all embrace, with all vulnerability, with all protection, so that she can flourish into the woman that she's destined to be. And then my children, like, when we come together in the fruit of that beautiful intimacy and the laborious task that we took to be intimate, that's going to be birthed into our children as a reflection of ourselves. And then we raise up warriors to go into the world. And now what? Now we have an army. Do you see, like, if you could look at this in a tactician's perspective, like, why it's so important that the devil destroys a marriage, and then this is only talking from a perspective of a man, because I'm a man, guys. Like, right? I'm a man. Let's be clear. Male, man. But from the perspective of a woman, don't think that a woman doesn't have any contribution. Her contribution is powerful. I talked about, hopefully that made sense on the live from Wednesday. I was saying how the father is the drummer. If you think about music, I'm learning little by little about music. I don't know a lot. I wish I could learn and pay for classes. I'm not there yet. But from what I know so far is that the beat from the drummer is who determines the pace. He determines the timing, and basically, or she, because there's amazing drummers out there that are women. They determine the direction almost for everybody else to follow. That you can look at in the masculine. And again, drummers are not just males, just to clarify. I'm just making a specific reference here. They determine the pace, but who's on the piano is the one that determines the harmony, right? The melody of the actual symphony that's being created here. So where the man does determine the pace or the direction and all of these things, she's adding the beauty of the life that is the essence of what enters into your ear and makes you fall in love. Like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? And how beautiful is it that God created beings that have the capacity, that the greatest instrument God ever created was the ability to sing. Oh my God, it's what? Today's Friday. What is it, 10:54? You hear people sing and it's like, wow. I can't believe y'all better be glad God did not let me have the ability to sing, because I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. I'll be saying everything in song. I'll be like, hey, my name is Carlos. Like, I'll be like, oh, I would be singing every word to you. It wouldn't be fair. God knew not to give me the gift of song, because this big old head would be bigger. Like, I already got a big old cranium. I got like a 5 head. It's not that big, but I got a big old head. But anyway, women have the beauty that adds the essence of life. She's that sazon. She's that salt. She's all of that. So, this is what's so crucial about the confusion that's happening in our society right now, is that the devil's trying to flip that. The devil's trying to make the woman the drummer and the man play the piano. And again, this is not to say only drummers should be men and only women should be piano players. I don't know. What are they called? So I'm just trying to talk about in very abstract terms. He's trying to confuse us to make the woman the authority and the one that determines direction and all these things, and it's the man to be subservient to that. And it's like that. You can't do that. You have to see the spiritual warfare that's going on. So let's get a little bit deeper on the spiritual warfare, because the reason why I'm I really feel like my greatest contribution in my life, thinking about it, is gonna be my marriage and my family, man. I don't take that lightly. And the reason why I say that, like, God has been making this more and more clear to me as I've been studying economics, my most recent endeavor personally. My most recent intellectual ascent is to learn economics, and I've really been studying the likes of is it Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, giants of economics. What I've learned from them is like there's a real solution to this, and we've been ignoring it for nearly half a century. And that's simply this: if you build up the family, we bring back reverence to the institution that is marriage between a man and a woman and children, and then you give those parents the power to choose what school they want to go to, and you create a safe space for that community to thrive, basically the economy will revitalize itself. Like it will self-correct its own trajectory. So I find that fascinating that the devil, like, as I'm learning these things, the devil is really like destroying families. Okay, so I want to get into this spiritual warfare on a more focused level, and that's something that we'll get to in a second. I'm trying with all my being to present to my wife the reality of what I've lived, and she will eventually come to the realization or the knowledge of what I've been presenting in our videos and our live sessions, that my desire for marriage stems from that insecurity. I believe I already mentioned that. And it comes from the brokenness of my home. And I truly believe God did that not intentionally, but he allowed it to happen. And because of that, it put me to really focus on marriage and study it. But what's so beautiful, I was talking to my father last night. He's in Jersey and he works out there overnight. So we were having like an hour-long conversation about this, and he was saying like, yo, I'm proud of you, because he'd been watching my videos, and he's like, dude, I can't even believe, like, whatever, like the way that I've been talking about marriage and stuff. And he's turning 50 June 11th, and he's like, dude, like any girl that woman that's coming for you, she's gonna be badly in love. And I'm just like, oh, I hope so, man. Like, I want that woman, man, and I really want her, dude. But so we were talking, and then I was telling him, like, you know, my perspective on marriage really started to grow from January forward. Like, I feel like God has been accelerating my perspective and my study on marriage by studying my wife. And that sounds strange because, again, you're like, yo, you don't know who she is. But I was trying to think about this earlier, and I swear this has to do with spiritual warfare. I've studied her, and the way that I was thinking about this, how can I help you understand? How am I studying something that's missing? In mathematics, if anybody likes math, I'm going to keep it very basic, arithmetic. You can find the value of something that's missing even if it's not presented in the equation. So the way that I've been looking at marriage is studying my wife from that perspective. If I can present to you the mathematical equation in basic arithmetic, if I say 1 plus x equals 2, all you have to do is find the value of x. If you studied whatever you want to study, you can come up with the value. If you study the sum, then you can come up with 1. If you study the 1, you can come up with 1. If you study that variable, which is x, you can come up with 1. So hopefully that's able to be presented to you in a way that is easily understood. So although the variable that's missing is my wife, I can study her behavior. I can study her in the sense of, yo, if this is what I'm going through, what is missing in my life that I can study? Like, if I'm struggling, then I can compare my struggle to her. If I'm crying, maybe she is. If I'm hurting, maybe she is. If I'm rejoicing, maybe she is. And I'm just trying to fill in the gap of what is missing. It's like a song. If I was to sing lyrics to you right now, and then all of all of a sudden stop, you would probably continue either the melody, the beat, or the lyrics itself, because there's a natural pattern to everything in the world. So if I'm a man that is in need of a woman, I'm a husband, not yet, that's in need of a wife, then all I have to follow is the divine pattern of God. Because although there's a variable missing, I can, in a sense, reverse engineer, follow the symphony, follow the harmony, follow the melody, and come up with what's missing. So, like if I'm being detail oriented, let's say, in the way that I'm trying to communicate with my wife, I can say like, yo, I see how she's being detailed oriented. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe I could even think about it from a opposite perspective. If I'm reserved, maybe she's bold. If I'm, like whatever, I can even do it in a contrasting way, like to figure this out. Now, what does this all have to do with spiritual warfare? I think that what this has to do with spiritual warfare is that we have to understand the importance of marriage and what is our roles, because in war, we need to know, okay, can I rely on you? If we're going to face this giant, can I trust in you? Can I trust in what's going on? Because we're going to war. And this is why, again, I know this may not be what you expect in regards to spiritual warfare, and we'll get even more detailed, but I'm trying to go about this in a unorthodox way. I don't know if you noticed, that's my style, is not to be conventional. I'm trying to present to my wife the utter essence of who I am. My innocence, my purity, my authenticity, the unveiled nature of who I am. Because if I'm able to do that, I think that's more enticing to her than me trying to be anything that I am or I am not. Because it's not about what I say to her. It's not about what I do. It's like the total package, right? Like my actions have meaning because it means that I'm able to commit and sustain commitment through whatever I perform, right? If I serve, the way that I love people, if she watches me, and the way that I interact with children, can she see a father in me? Can she see the way that I interact with other women? Do I respect women in the sense of like tias and aunties? Like, you always hear, as growing up with women, at least, they tell you the way that you treat your mother and your sisters is the way you're going to treat your wife. I always thought that was a lie, but it was true. And I learned a lot from my mother and my sisters. So she needs to see my action, right? And that holds a certain substance. But also, I want her to fall in love with the way that I describe her, right? Like my words need to have weight, not because they're just beautifully painted. And if I say that I'm in love with her because of who she is, like the way that I could see her unformed substance, the rawness, the authenticity of who she is, that she's my canvas, she's my muse, I'm her match and she's my fuse, like that she's my Magna Carta, she's my piece de resistance, like she's my magnus opus, like, and I see it in that way, like I can describe to her, like, let my voice travel to the to the chambers of your ears and ultimately caress your mind as I love your soul and embrace your heart. Like I want her to fall in love with me. And why am I saying all of that? Because in order for her to trust me in war, she has to know that the innocence, that my action and my words tandemly together hold a specific power and a substance. I think that's what true authority is as a man. It's not me telling her, follow my rules, follow my lead, do what I say. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what it is. And what I really see is like, if I'm able to present myself as a living sacrifice, the innocence that I keep referring to, the purity, the pure essence of who I am, I see it as like, you ever seen like a 3D model of like a cell, and it's like a circular thing, but there's like these little, I don't know if they're branches or whatever, and it moves in and out like this, right? I feel like that cell, whatever that membrane is, that entity, that's what the innocence is that I'm trying to present to her. Because if she's able to merge herself into me and we become one cell, we need to protect that by all costs, by all means necessary, through our loyalty and fealty to one another. Because if we're not able to do that, there's a leak. If we're giving attention where it's not due, again, if we are giving ourselves away or giving whatever, like if we're not respecting each other, anything can cause a leak in that. And then ultimately we're not able to give the pure essence of, man, the vulnerability. And are you seeing how I'm drawing this to spiritual warfare? Because this is what the devil attacks. I'm talking about the vulnerability, the trust that her and I can build up together. And he attacks this because if he can separate us and he puts us at odds, then we can't accomplish what we need to accomplish. And what I'm talking about in regard to, and I really hope she understands how much I have respect for her. And I want to say this, like, I want her. I want all of her. I want her mind. Like, I want to know how her mind works. I want to know the neurological connections and the firing that happens in her mind. I want to know what enlightens her, what causes the light bulb to tick. Like, what is her understanding? What is her perspective? What is the inner workings of the intricacies of her idiosyncrasies? Like, why do you think the way that you do, beloved? Why do you see the world in the beauty that you do? Right? And then I want her heart. I want her heart to be mine exclusively. If I said that she has me and she has all of me, and not part of me, but all of me in the same way God does, then I want that from her too. Because if there's no veil, we have intimacy unbound. This is the beauty of the cross and the tearing of the veil, is that Christ brought us into that. Think of it symbolically, into that physical union where there's no depth deeper than this. There's no more vulnerability than that, than the unveiling. So I want her heart. You know what I'm saying? I want her heart. I want to know why she loves in the way that she does, or why is she reserved? Why is she hidden? Why is she unseen? Why does she hold back? Is she afraid in the same way that I'm afraid? Going back to trying to understand her by understanding myself. Because if this is truly the woman that God has for me, then I just need to understand myself. Because if we are one, and to be one day, then that means there's some type of semblance of her in me and me in her. Because as I was reading the book of Luke this morning, Jesus says, and he tells a story, and then he says, wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I really believe that God placed my treasure in the heart of my wife, and then her treasure in my heart. So by introspection, by looking deep within herself, she will find me. And by looking deep within myself, I will find her. I don't know if that makes sense. And when we finally become married, God will give us the key, and through marriage and intimacy, we will be able to reap all that is locked away in the treasure that is hidden away. So in a sense, my heart is with her and her heart is with me, right? And then when we marry, now our hearts will finally find their home and become one. So I want all of her. I want all of her. I want her mind. I want her soul. I want her heart. And I want her. I want her body, of course, but not to abuse her, and I'm not even just talking physically when I say her body. Like, I want her. I want her in my arms. I want to hug her. I want to hold her. I want her to know that she's protected from the world, that her lion, her man, her king has her in his arms, in his hands. She is there, and she can finally, whatever's the reason for her reservation, whatever's the reason, if she's like me and she's afraid to give her heart, and the thing that she's probably most fears is falling in love, then when I say that I want her body, I'm saying I want to bring her close to me, that our heartbeats may be at the same rhythm. Our respirations, the inhalation and the exhalation may be matched by the one accord. that the heat of our bodies may be one, so that God can operate through the vessel that is one. So when I say I want her mind, her soul, her heart, and her body, I'm saying that I want all of her, without any over dependence on any one of those things. I want the unity of multiplicity of all that is her, without rejecting nor neglecting any one of those things. And again, this is a weird thing to make a connection to spiritual warfare, because if I can unite myself to her in this way, there's no way the enemy could separate us. He doesn't have the power to separate what God has united. So again, when I say that I want all of her, I want her trust, I want her hope, I want her love, I want her confidence. Because if I can have that, then I can lead her. And if I can lead her, I can die for her. And if I can die for her, again, the seed is grown into the ground and it will bear fruit for us in our marriage. So I think that the greatest way to combat against what the devil is doing is this here. It's between us. So her and I have to recognize that the devil's going to try to attack all of that I just said there. I hope she's already learned this about me. I'm very careful in the way that I talk about these things, because, you know, I want her to know, like, I want her. I want her. I desire her. She's my desire. And who doesn't want to be desired by the ones they love? I want to know that she desires me, right? So I want her to feel protected. And I don't want her to feel like I never want her to think that I'm just like everybody else, that I'm just like all the other men. And I hope that even by the limitation of not being able to embrace her, by not being able to kiss her, to love her, to show her any different through my actions, I can only use my words. And I want to demonstrate through everything that I have that I will be different, that I want to be in a league of my own, because I just want to be who I am, so that we can be uniquely who we are. And that's what I've tried to demonstrate to her throughout all of my engagement with her. I want to show her we will break every single cliche. We're going to change this world by changing the destiny of our lineage, our heritage, our children. And the way that we love, we're going to give an example and inspire generations. And she's doing it now, and she doesn't even realize it, because when I say these last 3 months is where I've really learned all these things, again, it comes from her. I learned this because of her. And if any one of you are being inspired by any of the things that I'm saying, then again, I have to give the honor, the credit to her, and the glory all the way to God, because he gave me this method of deconstruction, or this method of study, to see her habits, to see her behavior, to see how detailed she is, and how I appreciate her efforts and all that she does, and the length by which she goes. And although she may be a woman of few words, her action is powerful. And I appreciate all of her efforts. She is not unseen. We will fight this fight together. And you may have noticed in the video previously, there was something that was missing from the vision of the hope, and that's prayer and fasting. What is that going to look like? This is something that her and I have to discuss. And you would think that would be like one of the main things that we should discuss, right? Or that should have been in the video. But the reason why I didn't mention it is because prayer to me is like breathing, and fasting is like drinking water. How do I explain to her how we're going to breathe in the relationship, and how often should we drink water? Like, that's something that we got to come to at our natural rhythm. Because me by myself, I have my personal relationship with God. And then her herself, she has her personal relationship with God. So when we finally come together, we're going to be unstoppable. We will be unstoppable because, man, if there's one thing we are fighting, we are fighting against the kingdom of darkness by praying on our knees. She's praying wherever she is, and I'm praying wherever I am. And if she could see everything that we've gone through, all the attempts at destruction, all the sabotage, all the ridicule, all the attempts from the devil to destroy this union, that hopefully she can see the power of God's resilience and his commitment to this, that no matter what we have faced, God still is bringing us closer and closer, and I can't wait to be with that woman. And I'll mention this, and I'll end by saying this, I guess, because this is getting too long already. I can't wait to be with that woman, and we finally take this task of marriage and commitment and all these things and intimacy and loving one another and all of that, man. I just want her to know I'm waiting for her. I'm waiting on God, right? And she's waiting on God. Ultimately, we're waiting on God. But I'm waiting for when God finally reveals to her who I am to her man, her husband, her king, her lion, her protector, her papi, you know, that he may give her what we've asked of him in agreement for the dreams of revelation and truth, to put an end to all things and a start to the new. And I don't know, I was just thinking about this earlier because I was reading my journal. I'm waiting on that day that she'll call and come save me, because golly, your boy is tired of being alone. I don't want to be alone anymore, mommy. I really love you and I want to be with you. And I'm thinking about a dream that I had, just thinking about how much God has progressed and like stop the plans of the devil, that he tried to delay what God has purposed. I remember, again, I'm ending by saying this. I remember when I first moved here in 2020, I was like 6 weeks in. It was like September or something, or the beginning of October. And I remember crying in the middle of the night, sleeping on a lumpy old dog-smelling couch. And I remember I started to fall asleep, and I had this dream. In the dream, and half consciously in reality, I woke up and I received a call in the dream. And I'm like, hello. And she's like, hello, is this Carlos? And I'm like, whoa, I heard her voice and it tickled my ear. It sounded so familiar. I'm like, yes, who is this? And she said, it's me, blank, fill in the gap. I mean, I know what's her name because God revealed it to me like 10, 11 years ago. She says, it's me. And I couldn't believe that it was, and I was rejoicing. And then I woke up and I'm like, yo, God is gonna do this one day. So wherever she is, I hope she knows I'm just waiting for that call, you know, like, so that we could finally be one. And I hope you see the efforts and the length of which I'm going to, so that we can finally come into agreement and do this for the glory of God. We're gonna light this world on fire. So hopefully you're excited for that. But anyways, not to take any more time, I know this is a long video. Comment down below, guys. Let me know some of your perspective. What do you guys want to know? Give me some more questions. I'm gathering questions so I could address that in a single video. But anyways, guys, the next video likely is going to have to do with singleness and advice in that. So y'all know what it is. It's Losi. We are the throne of positivity, but nobody shall dethrone us. We are. Peace. Leave it all in God's hands and let him build your house. He's going to do the impossible. Baby girl, I'm waiting on you. Call me. Nah.